You won't believe what just happened. Seriously, drop everything you're doing right now because the wrestling world is absolutely losing its mind. Just when everyone thought they had the Elimination Chamber all figured out, just when the predictions were locked in and the bracket seemed set in stone, one name emerged from the chaos that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. Djavon Evans, yeah, you heard that right. The same Djavon Evans that most people had written off weeks ago. The same competitor who was supposedly out of contention, relegated to the undercard, dismissed as just another body filling space on the roster. Well, guess what? He just punched his ticket to the Elimination Chamber, and the shockwaves are still reverberating through every arena, every locker room, and every corner of the internet. Fans are going ballistic. Critics are scrambling to explain it. And somewhere, the favorites for the chamber match are probably sitting in their locker rooms wondering what the hell just happened. This is the story of how one man defied every odd, silenced every doubter, and earned his way into one of the most brutal matches in professional wrestling. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to understand exactly why this moment is so much bigger than just one qualification. So buckle up, because this journey is wild from start to finish. Let's rewind the clock just a little bit. 3 weeks ago, Djavon Evans was nowhere near the Elimination Chamber conversation. In fact, if you had mentioned his name in connection with that match, people would have laughed you out of the room. He'd been on a brutal losing streak, the kind that breaks careers and sends wrestlers spiraling into obscurity. 5 straight losses. 5. Each one more demoralizing than the last. The commentary team had started using words like struggling and searching for answers. The dirt sheets were reporting backstage frustration. Fans on social media were debating whether he'd lost his edge, whether the business had passed him by, whether it was time to accept that his best days were behind him. The narrative was written, signed, and sealed. Djavon Evans was done. But here's the thing about professional wrestling that makes it so beautifully unpredictable, so maddeningly compelling. Just when you think you know how the story ends, just when the script seems obvious, someone tears up that script and writes their own ending. And that's exactly what Djavon Evans did. It started 2 weeks ago on Monday night. A random tag team match, nothing special advertised, just mid-card filler to bridge between the bigger segments. Djavon Evans was teaming with another lower-card guy against a couple of established names. Nobody expected anything. The live crowd was mild, still recovering from the opening segment. Commentary was already teasing the main event later that night. This was supposed to be background noise. But something happened in that ring. Something clicked. Djavon Evans moved differently. Sharper. Faster. More aggressive. There was a fire in his eyes that hadn't been there in months. He was hitting his moves with a crispness that reminded people why he'd been considered a rising star in the first place. And when he hit his finisher and got the pin, clean in the middle of the ring, the arena popped. Not a huge reaction, but enough. Enough to make people take notice. Enough to make the announcers actually sound interested. Enough to plant a seed. The following week, creative threw him into a triple threat match as a last-minute addition. Word going around was that someone else had been injured during a house show, they needed a body, and Djavon Evans was available. Again, nobody expected anything. The odds were against him. The other 2 competitors were established upper mid-carders with momentum. But Djavon Evans didn't just participate in that match, he absolutely stole it. He took risks. He connected on sequences that had the crowd gasping. He absorbed punishment that would have ended most matches and kept fighting. And in a moment that still has people rewinding and re-watching, he reversed a double-team maneuver into a sudden small package on one opponent while simultaneously knocking the other out of the ring. 1, 2, 3. Victory! The arena erupted. Social media exploded. Suddenly, people were paying attention. And that's when management made the announcement that changed everything. Due to the Elimination Chamber qualification process being dynamic and based on recent performance metrics, there would be one final qualifying match. A gauntlet match. 6 competitors would enter one by one, and the last person standing would claim the final spot in the chamber. The names announced were heavy hitters. Former champions. Main event regulars. Guys who'd main event pay-per-views. And then, almost as an afterthought, almost like someone in the production truck was playing a joke, they announced the 6th entrant, Djavon Evans. The internet went crazy, but not in a good way. People were furious. This is a waste of time. Why are they even bothering? He's just there to eat the pin. The betting odds had him at absolute dead last. Wrestling podcasters spent entire segments laughing at the idea that he had any chance whatsoever. Even some of the other competitors made comments in backstage interviews that barely disguised their dismissiveness. One guy literally said, "6 men enter, but really it's 5 of us competing for one spot because we all know Evans not walking out of there with anything except new bruises." The night of the gauntlet match arrived. The arena was packed. The energy was electric because everyone knew they were about to witness something special, just not what they thought they were about to witness. The match structure was announced: entrants would come out at random intervals, eliminations would occur via pinfall or submission, and the last competitor remaining would go to the chamber. Simple. Brutal. Perfect. The first 2 competitors entered and tore into each other immediately. These were hungry, desperate men fighting for the opportunity of a lifetime. The wrestling was stiff, physical, exactly what you want from a qualification match. After about 7 minutes of back and forth action, the second entrant managed to hit his finisher and score the first elimination. The crowd was hot. Then the countdown started for the third entrant. The music hit. Another established name. The match continued, building intensity. Bodies were flying. Near falls were getting closer and closer to 3. You could feel the tension mounting. 15 minutes in, we were down to 3 competitors. All of them were exhausted, battered, running on fumes and pure willpower. And that's when the countdown started again. The arena went dark. The entrance music echoed through the speakers, and Djavon Evans stepped through the curtain. The crowd reaction was mixed, uncertain. Half of them were curious about this underdog story that had been quietly building. The other half were still skeptical, still waiting for him to fail. Djavon Evans walked to that ring with the expression of a man who had absolutely nothing left to lose and everything to prove. He climbed through those ropes and immediately went to work. He didn't wait, didn't hesitate, didn't show any respect for the established hierarchy. He went right after the most dominant guy in the match, the former champion who'd already eliminated 2 people, and he hit him with a devastating knee strike that echoed through the arena. The place gasped. What happened next was 7 minutes of pure chaos. Djavon Evans was everywhere. He was countering signature moves. He was hitting dives to the outside. He was kicking out of pins that should have finished him. The other competitors couldn't believe it. The crowd was getting louder and louder with each near fall. You could feel the momentum shifting. You could sense something special happening. And then, in a sequence that's already being called one of the most electrifying moments of the year, Djavon Evans reversed a top rope attempt into a mid-air cutter, immediately popped up despite being barely able to stand, hit his finishing sequence on a second opponent who tried to capitalize, stacked both men on top of each other, and hooked the leg. The referee's hand hit the mat. 1, 2, 3, double elimination. The arena absolutely lost its mind. People were on their feet screaming. The commentary team was going insane. No way. No way. Djavon Evans just eliminated 2 competitors at once. This is unbelievable. But there was still one more obstacle. The last remaining competitor, the guy who'd entered first and had been in the match for over 20 minutes, slowly pulled himself up using the ropes. He was exhausted but experienced. He'd been in big matches before. He knew how to close the deal. Both men stared at each other from across the ring. The crowd was absolutely deafening. This was it. Everything on the line. They circled each other cautiously. The first exchange was tentative, both men testing, both men protecting against the knockout blow. Then they locked up, and it was like someone had lit a fuse. They traded strikes in the center of the ring. Chops that echoed like gunshots. Forearms that snapped heads back. Neither man would go down. The crowd was chanting, split down the middle, the noise building and building until it felt like the roof might blow off. The finish came suddenly, beautifully, perfectly. The opponent went for his signature super kick, the move that had ended dozens of matches. But Djavon Evans, with timing that can only come from desperation and instinct combined, ducked under it at the last possible millisecond, grabbed his opponent from behind, and in one fluid motion executed a German suplex that spiked the guy on his head. The opponent crumpled. Djavon Evans, barely conscious himself, draped an arm across his chest. The referee dropped down. The crowd counted along, each number louder than the last. 1, 2, 3. The bell rang. The music hit. And Djavon Evans, the man who was supposed to be finished, the man who wasn't supposed to stand a chance, the man who'd been counted out by everyone, had just qualified for the Elimination Chamber. The arena erupted into pure pandemonium. Fans were jumping up and down, hugging strangers, losing their minds. Djavon Evans himself couldn't even stand at first. He just lay there in the center of the ring, tears streaming down his face, hands covering his eyes, the emotion of the moment completely overwhelming him. When he finally made it to his feet, his legs nearly gave out. The referee had to hold him up while raising his hand. The crowd was chanting his name so loud that it drowned out his entrance music. This wasn't just a victory. This was redemption. This was validation. This was a man reclaiming his career and his dignity in front of the whole world. Backstage, reactions poured in immediately. Other roster members who'd been watching on monitors were shown with expressions of genuine shock and respect. One veteran was caught on camera just shaking his head and smiling, saying that kid just wrote the comeback story of the year. Social media absolutely exploded. Within minutes, Djavon Evans was trending worldwide. Clips of the finish were being shared millions of times. Wrestling journalists were scrambling to write articles about the stunning upset. Fans who'd dismissed him weeks ago were suddenly posting about how they'd always believed in him. The narrative had completely flipped in the span of one night, one match, one moment. But here's what makes this story even better. In the days following his qualification, Djavon Evans did something unexpected. Instead of cutting a typical "I told you so" promo, instead of gloating or throwing shade at his doubters, he appeared on camera and spoke with genuine humility and raw emotion. He talked about how close he'd come to quitting. He admitted that the losing streak had broken him mentally, that he'd spent nights questioning whether he belonged in this business. He thanked the handful of people who'd never stopped believing in him. And then he looked directly into the camera and said something that gave everyone chills. He said, "I know I'm the underdog going into that chamber. I know everyone still thinks I got lucky. And that's fine. Let them think that. Because when that match starts, when those chains are locked and there's nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, they're going to find out that luck had nothing to do with it. I earned this spot. And I'm going to earn what comes next." The Elimination Chamber is now just days away, and the entire landscape of that match has changed. What was supposed to be a straightforward battle between established main eventers has suddenly become unpredictable. Nobody knows what to expect from Djavon Evans. Nobody knows if this momentum can continue through the Chamber's brutality. But that's exactly what makes this so compelling. That's exactly why this story has captivated the wrestling world. Because every great championship run, every legendary career moment, every story that we remember years later started somewhere. It started with someone refusing to accept what everyone else believed was inevitable. It started with someone deciding that the narrative wasn't finished being written. Djavon Evans' journey from the bottom of the card to the Elimination Chamber is more than just a feel-good story. It's a reminder of why we love this business. It's proof that anything can happen on any given night. It's evidence that persistence and belief and refusing to quit can actually mean something. Whether he wins the chamber or not, whether this leads to a championship reign or just one incredible moment, doesn't really matter. What matters is that right now, in this moment, Djavon Evans represents possibility. He represents hope. He represents the idea that your story isn't over until you decide it's over. So as we count down to the Elimination Chamber, as the speculation builds and the predictions roll in, remember this moment. Remember how it felt when that referee counted to 3 and the entire wrestling world gasped in unison. Remember that in a business built on predetermined outcomes, true emotion and genuine surprise can still break through and remind us why we're fans in the first place. And who knows? Maybe we're watching history being made. Maybe years from now we'll look back at this moment as the beginning of something legendary. Or maybe Djavon Evans' story ends in the chamber, and this qualification becomes a beautiful, perfect moment frozen in time. Either way, we were here for it. We witnessed it. We felt it. And that's something special. If this story gave you chills, if it reminded you why you fell in love with wrestling, smash the like button right now. Drop a comment and tell me your favorite underdog story in wrestling history. And if you're not already subscribed to Wrestling Impact, what are you waiting for? We're bringing you the most compelling stories, the deepest analysis, and the rawest emotion in wrestling coverage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you don't want to miss what happens next. This is just the beginning, and trust me, you're going to want to be here for every single moment. Until next time, keep believing in the impossible, because in wrestling, the impossible happens every single night.